You should turn
the panel.
Okay, so the panel for this discussion: Dr. Brandon McCann, Mike Stevenson, Allison Tiemann, aka Typhon Blue, aka Genderatic. Brian Martinez, otherwise known as the Doge. And me. I don't need an introduction. I was in the movie, you all saw it. If you don't know, I can find out. Okay, so we're going to take questions. Anybody want to raise their hand? This gentleman, a very charming young man, who will not sing apparently, no matter how much I ask him to, will bring the mic to you.
I want to add something. So this is the man in charge of the production of Honey Badger Radio. So I'm just explaining why. And of course, everybody knows about Dr. Leonard Kennedy. Isn't it awesome? I think he probably hates me a little for saying that.
I don't like people saying nice things about him.
He'll never admit that he's talented, so just don't be nice to him. It makes him uncomfortable.
But you guys should thank. Does anybody here like Honey Badger Radio? Thank this man.
Are you the dog there, sir? I am the Doge, yes.
Thank
you for clarifying.
But that's the first question of the evening.
There you go. All right, so raise hands, ask us anything. Well, almost anything. Keep it clean.
Why?
Why?
Why not?
Well, actually, that is a good question, considering how not clean.
Are we already off topic?
Yes, we are.
I would like to know, Mike, where's the hat?
I forgot the hat. I know you guys like the hat more than you like me, but I left it at Karen's house. That's another long story.
Oh, wow.
I thought he sold the hat.
Oh, yeah, he got a...
The hats are for sale for $1,000 in my picture.
And speaking of sales, we do have merchandise outside. And just so you know, anything that I actually sell here, I'm giving a receipt, and it goes into our lawsuit against Calgary Expo. So, if you want to list this Honey Badger merch and to stick it to, a feminist organization.
Capitalism!
Capitalism! Woo! Okay, not the capitalism isn't as popular. What?
Hello. So I'm a university student here in town, and I've noticed there's, even I'm in a STEM field, and even in my STEM field there's a lot of feminist influence in what we are taught and just in the general campus environment. So my question is, how do we either curb or combat this as university students?
You mean the feminism in the university environment?
Yes.
Ooh.
Keep your head down.
Yeah.
Well, see, that doesn't solve anything, though.
No,
right?
that doesn't solve anything.
That's the problem. I mean, it works on an individual basis. Every student who keeps their head down and just, keeps their eyes focused on their work and ignores all of this other bullshit, and then they get their degree, and then they're off to the races and they get a job, and it's all done, and they don't have to put up with it anymore. They didn't get in any trouble, and they didn't have any problems, right? But that's sort of the attitude that has been at work. That sort of, you have a very small minority of extremely passionate people who are dictating the atmosphere of the entire university. They're dictating what people are allowed to say and not say, and how you have to communicate and how sensitive you have to be, and that you have to go to a mandatory consent class or whatever. So essentially you have this tiny minority of people who are dictating everything on the campus, and everybody else is either just not that passionate about gender issues, about their own dissent. They might disagree, but they're not as passionate about their disagreement as these people are about pushing their agenda. Or you have people who are scared. They're really scared of the consequences. They don't want to speak up because they see what happens when somebody comes into the firing line of these groups, right? I mean, you saw the protests there. And they don't want to be the target of that. And they certainly don't want to be the target of a group like that that can actually engage in an illegal protest. And maybe you guys didn't notice, but those protesters at the Warren Farrell event, they broke the law. They committed crimes, assaulting police. They assaulted police. Nobody was charged with any crime. The university did not condemn the demonstration, the protest. It was endorsed by the Canadian Union of Public Employees, okay, and it was endorsed by the university's Women's Studies Department. And none of those students were reprimanded, none of them were arrested, and so I can understand why you don't want to stick your neck out when even the administration is going to let them do whatever they want and essentially just and throw you under the bus, right, as a troublemaker. So I think honestly it's going to take numbers of people to start applying subtle pressure, and you don't really have to apply much pressure. You just have to say things that are a little problematic, okay, and make statements that are just a little problematic, and then you're going to get pushback from them, and they're going to lose their minds, okay, that's what happens, and then other people notice them losing their minds over something that's really not a big deal, and you're going to get more support for the opposition of these people, to these people. So that's the only thing that I can really think of, safety in numbers, and start slow, right? Start subtle.
And you should also remember just the act of resisting what they're trying to say about you is significant as well. So, I mean, it may be a private victory, but getting through school without ingesting that kind of toxicity directed at your bio group is, it's a triumph. It's a private one, but make sure you just take care of yourself and make sure you don't ingest this stuff and make it part of yourself. And
yeah, you don't want to be Scott Aronson and his intimate comment 271 or whatever it is. You can look it up online, but he was just absolutely psychologically destroyed. He was a nerdy guy in engineering or something like that. He's a professor now, I believe. And he managed to come out of it, but only after he left school. So.
Thanks.
Well, Carrington was absolutely true about the process, about setting up whatever you have to set up, and they'll simply come to you. But what she forgot was the main rule: ABR, always be recording. The movie you just watched is a testament to how you can bring light to these situations by simply recording the objective truth and letting the world know it. This is why.
Wear a GoPro.
I think this is that helps. This is largely why these issues are only just coming into the public sphere, because we've been able to record things objectively and not get muddied down by the endless lies. Let's call them what they are, folks. They're lies.
All right.
Next person.
it's starting. It's trying to start.
You can applaud. It's fine.
You can absolutely
First, I want to thank Karen just for holding the live chat with Barry. That's the only way I found out about this, which is really amazing. I'm also a university student. I'm in a female-dominated field, actually, and it is very, very dangerous. But my question is I want to hear your opinion on Jordan Peterson's fight at the U of T, if you guys have heard about that, and what insight you guys can give us as to how we can approach this, because the landscape right now, to me, looks very bleak.
Well, it does, and it's because it's been left so long. I mean, he mentioned in one of his videos that, something should have been done 10 years ago. I'm more of the opinion that something should have been done 20 to 35 years ago in terms of stemming some of the scope creep of what these, what this group and what it's doing with policy and stuff like that, and the curriculum. But essentially, I totally back Jordan Peterson. I've actually had the honor of talking with him for an hour over Skype one day a few months ago, and I think he's one of the smartest guys in psychology right now, and I have to admire his courage. And I mean, he says it's not courage. He says he's more scared to not speak than to speak at this point. But that just shows you how far things have gone. right? That he's more scared to not speak than he is to actually speak up. And I would say like everybody here should look it up. Look up his the footage of his free speech rally on the Rebel Media, I believe it is, and see what he has to say. Most of what he said is really not that extreme. It's really just maybe trying to correct things a little bit. He's worried about encoding in law not just what you can't say, but what you have to say. And I think that that's a valid concern. The words that you have to use, rather than just the words that you can't use. And so essentially, I'm concerned about that, he's concerned about that, you guys all should be concerned about that. You should look it up and research it, what he's doing, and support him. So, anybody else?
I think somebody else has a
question for pretty much all of you. For individuals who would like to get their own voice out there, to engage with the community as a whole, but aren't able or willing, that matter, to commit what seems to be a large chunk of their personal time. Do you have any recommendations for ways to cultivate both resources and connections in the environment so that it is easier and more just swifter to engage in these discussions? If that makes any sense.
So what you're asking for, or do you mean like cultivating an environment in which these discussions aren't quite as difficult?
Just the ability to get your voice out there without spending 8 hours a day putting together YouTube videos just so that your opinion will be heard on something. Is that just kind of the price you have to pay to be engaged in the
Well, I don't think it has the price you have to pay. I think it's the price you have to pay to be engaged in the conversation on a place where you can get a larger platform in terms of views. But if you want to engage in your community at a community level, that's actually something that I think is really, really needed. So I put up posters, start a group, start networking that way. We need to take these ideas and make it so that people can talk about them in the real world without any fear. And the only way to do that is to start developing a community presence. I mean, we have collectively a fairly large presence on YouTube, but it doesn't mean a lot unless that ends up changing communities and changing the way that we talk to each other in a community. So the next step is to take these ideas and make them real in the real world. I mean, we're not necessarily we're an unreal world, yeah. I guess you could say that. All right, I'm wittering enough. So next person.
Hi, I'm taking the model for question Q&As. All your work, very well researched, fellow. Thank you very much. My question is more of a request for comment or speculation. Have you heard about that Ontario legislation about changing it to birth parent and other parent?
I'm wondering how they're going to assign child support.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, like seriously, if it's birth parent and other parent.
Yeah, if there's no biological father there, then maybe we can.
Maybe all those welfare, those women who want to get welfare can sign Gloria Steinem as the other parent.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Well, I mean, honestly, it just like I don't really have a huge amount of concern for that kind of change, because that's that's a little bit different from the government essentially passing a law that tells me that I have to use certain words in my day-to-day communications with people, right? It's a little different. Signing a birth certificate is a one-time thing. Birth parent, other parent, whatever. Maybe there'll be a third parent or extra parents at some point. I'm not real happy with it, but I don't.
It's not our gig, I guess.
Yeah, I just can't get outraged about that because it's just sort of on an official document. It's not like they're gonna make your kids call you birth parent and other parent.
But
right?
but the other thing is that
Respect my pronouns.
If you're going to approach this from a gender neutral way, then how are they going to enforce this automatic presumption of paternity and the child support system. It's it might actually be beneficial. Who
There
knows?
might be some kind of weird way you could argue that.
Yeah.
One thing that I was going to say is like on social media, how would you recommend, like, because I've got that a lot of flack is recently I called out someone because she technically called all the creepy guys at school.
Mm-hmm.
She basically said, "Oh, I'm so afraid about the creepy guys at school. I'm afraid they're gonna rape me." And then I said, and then someone made a joke, "Oh, we're all waiting in the corner for that," and I got a lot of flack. And I said, "I like how you're giving me a lot of flack for that, but yet the joke that she made that she finds all creeps, rapists, well." And then basically, how would you recommend arguing or debating with people who don't see our point of view?
Was this on Twitter?
This is on Twitter. This is on, I think, an app for universities called It.
Does it have a maximum character counts?
Not really, no.
Okay, good. Stay off Twitter. It's poison, it's cancer, it's everything bad.
You can't have a debate in headlines.
But I don't know, how would you handle that?
Well, first of
Because
all...
I mean, all I would do is just say, yeah, well, grow a fucking sense of humor. And then I'd just leave it, right? But that's just me, and most people aren't me, so.
Okay, well, all right, so this was an individual on a platform with students, right?
Yeah,
what would have happened if it was a man who got on that platform and said, all sluts just want to give men STDs or something? What would have happened to him? All slutty women just want to give STDs. They're just STD factories.
Intentional STD factories.
Intentional STD factories. What do you think your response would have been to him? You might want to, give her...
Tarred, feathered, pilloried.
Yeah, like you said, it would have been tarred, feathered, and taken over camera,
put in stocks and pelted with rotten tomatoes.
Yeah, so just look at that and realize that she's enjoying a little bit of privilege there.
Yeah, for every...
And she might be enjoying it quite creepily.
Yeah, actually, because that is kind of, I don't know, like slandering...
An entire...
It's essentially, the word creep just means socially awkward guy.
Yeah.
Right? Essentially, because it's just...
I should note this app technically too is every post you make, like the post you make, is totally anonymous. You just come up as OP, but your comments are like your username or linked to your person. So.
Oh. Okay. Well, that seems weird.
Okay.
But yeah, Alison's right. For every joke, there is an equal and opposite joke in terms of gender. Whatever they say about men, if you look hard enough, you'll find the other thing you can say about women. But again, always be recording, because as you saw, Paul did that once, and that's one of the most well-known things about men's rights advocates. They write articles about bashing bitches. So get screen caps. In fact, be very careful with this in the first place, because they're going to magically forget the things they said and magically remember the things you said forever.
And
get screen caps of everything.
Yeah, and they'll magically drop the things that they said right down the memory hole if there's a delete option for their comments. So, I mean, I've had this happen before with certain feminists doing a conversation with me, and I'm responding to things that they've said, but, my comments, if they stood alone, would look absolutely like pure evil, and then they just go and delete all their comments. And so all that's left is,
Yeah, is what's left after you remove the bait. Yeah, but honestly, if you do that, the people who just buy into the narrative without looking further, you want to find the people who don't, because they'll be the ones who eventually affect change and do something. All right, next question.
You guys will remember many years ago that I was, especially you, Alison, I kind of approached you about how do we convey this message to women, because everybody in the movement knows that until women are on board, men won't be, period. That's just all that's going to happen. Do you think that this is our first start to getting women's attention?
Well, I mean, what depends? You mean women, like a larger amount of women than we've already gotten, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you were to look at it, yes, most of the prominent people in the men's movement are actually women, but I'm talking about the general public. The general public just doesn't hear these things, and it's mostly because it upsets women when people start talking about them. So how do we get women to stop getting upset whenever they hear this?
Well, I don't know. I think it's, a lot of these things happen kind of organically to a lot of women. I mean, Judith Grossman, who wrote that, what was Wall Street Journal article about how her son was falsely accused in university, and it was called A Mother, a Feminist, Aghast. And how she was a feminist who marched at the barricades and all of this, and she fought for all of these things and these changes. And I'm like, and then she's complaining now when all of the shit that she was doing 20 years ago is coming to fruition. It's like it's falling off the vine now. And I thought she would, and I made a video about it, I predicted that she would not learn any lessons from this, that she would, because she is essentially, when in that article, she's essentially saying, this is my suffering that I am suffering because of what's being done to my son. Not, this is my son's suffering and any other boy's suffering, potentially. But she surprised me. She joined Families Advocating Campus Equality, which is a group that is trying to turn back the Title IX tide of changes and erosion of due process and stuff like that for students on campuses. So she actually took some action. I think that a lot of women, if they know that there's something out there, right? So all we need to do really is to keep doing what we're doing. Women will find us. Women have found us, right? Just by stumbling across us or stumbling across Jasmine Newman over in Australia or something like that. So I think that that's really, and even if they might maybe find a voice for men. I mean, I found a much, much worse website in the manosphere, and that was where I cut my teeth, so.
The Spearhead?
Yeah, it was really
hardcore that was
back
fun.
then.
Okay, but yeah, your specific question was, do you think this will help? And I think it will. I think Cassie made a very, very good choice when she chose to follow herself down the rabbit hole, because I think it allows women to sort of see the process of learning this stuff and see someone go through it and see that, it doesn't necessarily make you a monster to say, hey, this stuff is something I didn't see before and I can see it now, and I don't have to hate myself for my ignorance before, but I really need to move out of it. And they can see themselves in this process.
Well, I think they can also see that she struggled with it, and I think that it was really a good choice for her to keep that in. That she was like, but then I want to say, what about the women, and and.
Yeah, because it explains, it sort of preemptively deals with the objections that women will have, and in a way they can sympathize with.
Truthfully, that's actually why I came to see the film, was purely to see her reaction. I've already experienced everything else that was in
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but thank you.
One other thing. It's going to...
Here, grab a microphone.
Shut up. There's only two.
No.
How do I do this?
You just hold it to your
Oh,
mouth. That's how you... Not too close. Don't lick it.
Shut up. The only other challenge is, I think, this was Cassie J's journey, and it is really important that people see it, because many people, not just women, are going to have the same reactions that she has. But now that she's gone through it, and she knows way more than most people about this whole gender discussion.
More than
the
some
next
in the
challenge, yeah, even more than some people in the movement.
Oh no, in the movie, in what was in this movie?
Yeah, in the film, right. The next challenge is going to be getting this out to everybody else. Because right now it's being shown in places where people know, who already have an interest in it, are going to go, and then maybe a few people who, they're kind of curious about it, or they're on the fence about it, or they heard about it. But we want to get this out to as many theaters as possible.
You're saying we need more protests.
Because
that's free advertising.
Yeah.
Well, not us, them.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
crazy articles would be
If
great.
you're a feminist watching, please protest us more.
Yeah, I mean, just look at what happened in Melbourne, right?
Legally, legally.
They were trying to get a showing in Melbourne, Australia, and feminists started a petition to make sure it didn't get shown. But as a consequence of that, a whole bunch of press people came out and they started
Published it, or actually covered it.
And they covered it, and they were like, "Why? They're shutting it down. Let's talk to the people involved with getting it put up in the first place." And now they have a new venue in Australia, so they found a new place to show it, and they've created a great deal of buzz around it. That's what we want. I don't think that you're going to change people's minds that have already committed to an idea based on this. But I think the idea is to get this out to the people who don't even know that this discussion is going on. So
yeah,
I think it's a good thing. I think this is a game changer.
I think it's a good start.
Yeah, it's a game changer for changing the community's minds, because it's also something that it can become a rallying point for communities to have these discussions. Bring this in, have these discussions, and start developing their own local solutions. Okay.
Cassie's been toying with the idea of doing a sequel, and I think the sequel. This was a movie about how men are vulnerable, and it would be nice if that got through to the conscience of the public, but I have my doubts. What she needs to do next is a film about how feminism victimizes women.
Yes.
Because that's going to hit everyone's funny bone.
Yeah, I think so.
We could have words on that issue.
Oh well, what I love is how they
words incoming.
They always say we men's rights activists are so divisive. We just divide, and we're so divisive, and we create.
I don't
conflict.
think I can say that. I can't agree with that, Karen. I can't.
That's what people.
I disagree.
Anyhow, I should have brought Censor Duck. Anyway, what they say is actually true of feminism. Feminism was the actual opening salvo in the gender war. We are not engaging, like, war is going to be waged on us whether we engage or not, right? So it's like the difference in terms of warfare analogies. Not that I'm saying that it's actual war. It's the difference between an actual engagement or a conflict and a genocide, right? So, people are finally standing up and starting to do something about essentially what's been a sustained 50-year-long attack on men, right, by feminism. And attacking them right where traditionalist values and traditional norms make men most vulnerable, right? And they've been exploiting those norms in order to do it. So, I mean, they haven't invented anything new. They're just taking all that old stuff, repackaging it into, and cramming the warhead full of plutonium and launching it. That's what they're doing. And so, honestly, it's just, this needs to be seen, right? Because if you actually pay attention in this movie, and you see the men's activists often including the issues of women. You look at Fred Hayward saying, well, how do you compare the suffering, right? How sexism affects both men and women. How do you compare it? You can't quantify it, right? He includes that. These other people, the only inclusion of actual men's issues that the feminists were really talking about was when Michael Kimmel started saying, well, I mean, let's just say what they're saying is true. It isn't, but let's just say it is, right? And then completely misrepresenting our position, so.
Well, yeah, it's, the feminists, we could have dealt with the unequal legal situation for women, which was in some ways verifiably unequal, although I would say that it was paired with an unequal responsibilities on men.
There was some equity.
There was some equity, and we could have changed that in a compassionate way that blamed no one. Just said that was a system that our ancestors needed to survive.
We've outgrown it.
And we've outgrown it, and it doesn't work with our current technology, our current communications, our current way of doing things. But we could have done it, and we could have done it in a very peaceful and loving and compassionate way. Instead, feminists did it with men hate women and want to rape and oppress them. And that was not good. So, yeah, and that's what I wanted to add to that. And yes, she should do her sequel should be on how feminism hurts women. But it's her own business.
How can it not hurt women to, like, okay, so you convince a woman that she's actually being cheated out of 23 cents on every dollar she earns, right? How is that not going to cause her to feel unhappiness and resentment and feel persecuted, all for no reason? Because she's not being cheated out of 23 cents on a man's dollar for the exact same work. She's not, right? So you lie to them and you tell them they're being victimized and you tell them that they are being persecuted, right? That can't be good for anybody's mental health and for it to be based on a lie.
Society hates us. It just hates us.
Society hates us. Like, how can you walk around
you do it better.
feeling good about yourself if you think society hates you? Like, what the? And wrongly. Stupidly.
Yeah. Okay.
Just you mentioned Fred Hayward, and I was reminded. I'm going to give you some feels now. Fred Hayward was a fellow who was playing guitar to his son, and had been estranged up until the making of that film. Well, they're now unestranged. His son came to the LA showing. That's the good feeling you get. That's the best feeling you're going to get. The worst feeling you're going to get is the circumcision scene. Sorry, I didn't watch that. So those are the highs and lows that you can expect, because there's nothing that can be done about. You can't give a child his foreskin back. So, but the other end of the spectrum is families that get back together and you get those warm, fuzzy feels.
I have something to add to that. On the Honey Badger radio channel, we did 2 interviews with Cassie and Cassie's boyfriend, and she talked a bit more about the process that she went through. And I asked her a question, which I'm really glad I asked. Sometimes it's really hard to interview a person who's also an interviewer. It's an interesting battle of wits. Because the first interview I had with Cassie, somewhere in the middle, I ended up being the one being interviewed. And so the second one I had to, okay, I'm going to get her this time. It's going to be all her the entire time. But I asked her a question, and it was, what is the question that you haven't been asked that you have wanted to answer, but you prepared for? And she said the question was, how has my life changed? How has my relationship with my boyfriend changed? And when she described the changes to her relationship with her boyfriend, they were so positive. Like the relationship just apparently improved many fold, because she let go of the resentment and the anger that she felt towards the person who is supposed to be closest to her in her entire life, her life partner. And you imagine teaching women to hold distance and an anger and a poisonous hatred towards the person who is supposed to support you, understanding you're supposed to support and understand. The person that in some ways is who you get for your life partner. And that in itself is a huge wound, and it was wonderful to see how the process of going through the red pill and falling down the rabbit hole let her let go of that and really improve that relationship. And like I said, I can't understate this. Like for them, it was just wonderful to see the positivity, the greater positivity that they had between them, because the 2 of them deserve the very best relationship they can get. And feminism for a long time prevented them from having that. And it was good to see that they were able to achieve that. All right, and the next question?
Just quickly saying, I am noticing you guys, and I have a number of people lined up.
Should we go through them quicker?
Your choice. I'm just letting them know.
We'll have to ball gag her.
Both of them.
We'll just have the men answer.
Time to mansplain.
You need to wrangle us like you do on the air.
Stop oppressing them, Brian.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question now. It's very interesting. So cited several times in the movie was the statistic on workplace injuries or workplace fatalities. And it's a statistic that's often cited by the men's rights movement. And I wanted to ask, is that a statistic that the men's rights movement actually thinks will ever change, given that there will always be dangerous jobs and that men generally have a higher propensity for risk-taking?
It may never change, but it can go down.
Well, and it may never change, but here's the thing, is we are looking at this wage gap, right? And the workplace death gap is actually part of that wage gap. It represents part of that. All those deep, like underwater welders who die like flies, right? They can make $500,000 a year doing that, right? Just welding, right? And you know, I'd rather be a librarian, even though it takes more school, right? The workplace death gap, number one, it represents the fact, it helps people understand that the wage gap or the earnings gap is not just some arbitrary sexist victimization of women, right? Men go out, they do specific things that women do not want to do, and men are willing to do them. And another thing that it brings up is that, you know, men build and maintain pretty much everything you rely on every single day, from your light switch to your toilet to your computer to, you know, just being able to trust that when you turn on the faucet, there's going to have water come out and the water's not going to make you sick, right? That's all men. Your garbage carried away. That's almost all men. First responders, virtually all men, right? These are the guys that maintain society. And what have you been doing to them for 50 years? Shitting on them, right? We should have a little freaking gratitude. This is what people need to do. Because, you know, honestly, if all men walked off, and I've said it before, if all men walked off the job for 3 days, just refused to do anything, right? We'd be 3 years cleaning up the mess.
We might be back in the Stone Age, but the necessity of the statistic is really to defend men against the charge of hatefulness and oppression. It may be that we should get that as low as possible. We never change the ratio, but at the same time, in raw numbers, we never change the ratio. But really, we should. If we change the ratio, it should be because only 2 people die, one of which is a woman and one of which is a man on workplace. So we're down so low. But the real issue is that you can't look at a group of people who are the majority, taking the majority of the risks to run society, and say that they are oppressing people in society. I mean, it's hard.
It's hard to make the argument that when a man walks home from the coal mine down the hill, so black that his own kids can't recognize him until he climbs their stoop, right? And then they know, okay, that one's my dad, right, with all the other dads. And the first thing he does is hand his packet of pay to his wife. And maybe, if there's enough in there, she'll give him some money to spend at the pub on Friday.
Patriarchal oppression.
That's how people in all kinds of places lived. That's how they arranged their families and their responsibilities in my grandparents' time, right? That was the height of patriarchy, the heyday of patriarchy. A man walking home from 12 hours in a coal mine and handing all his money to his wife, right? But she had to iron his shirts, damn it.
So it's, we should not forget that statistic. And feminists will say we just bring it up because we want to oppose feminist ideology. And yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like it is. I oppose the ideology. I want to poke as many holes in it as possible.
Okay. Quiet. All right. Next question.
Okay, so first I want to apologize. I have a tax exam first thing in the morning, so I'm going to ask my questions, get my answer, and then leave. I don't want to be rude.
Oh, you hate us.
Yeah.
That's the only conclusion.
We're going to yell, feminist!
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to, learn how to oppress people through the tax system.
Okay, good.
Actually, a real program accounting, which will help with the gender wage gap, and the oppression.
Yeah, by making more money.
Yes. Anyway, so my question is, you talked a lot about how universities are kind of a cesspool for feminism, but we all know that indoctrination starts earlier than that, and especially with the NDP now wanting to change the school curriculum, we know that it's just going to be super social justice warrior crap. And my husband and I, we're going to have our first baby in March, and so we've been throwing around the idea of homeschooling, but that's a lot of work. So, like, how do we?
Yeah, and you have to put up with your kids.
You might want to.
And I'll be at home all day, and that'll just be so oppressive. But whether we have a boy or a girl, we're finding out Tuesday. Whether we have a boy or a girl, how do we help our child navigate the school system without becoming indoctrinated in this feminist ideology that's just, I think, super destructive and harmful?
Teach your kid to question.
Yeah, I think.
I don't want that to question.
Well, teach your kid. I mean, tell your kid. And I told mine. He's over here, and he's a big pain in the butt. But he is smart enough to know what things to say at school that would get him in trouble. So don't say them, and just think them. Right? He does not buy all of this stuff. Part of that was just I essentially told him people in general are full of bullshit. And so don't take your teacher's word for anything. I mean, if it's a fact like, you know, the United States was founded in whatever year, or, you know, the Declaration of Independence is, you know, this document, fine, right? But once they start telling you what things mean, right? Then you have to actually encourage your kid to do what Allison, not necessarily to question the teacher and say, well, you know, I'm not really so sure about that. Well, you know, because you want your kid to survive school, but question in their own heads and don't necessarily buy everything people are telling you.
And try maybe I know this sounds weird, but maybe a Catholic school. No, seriously, Mike. The Catholic schools are a lot better.
Yeah, generally they turn out better students. Yeah, as long as you get one of the ones that doesn't drill the actual religion into their heads.
Oh,
and just
I don't think
they.
I think they get away from that actually.
Yeah.
So teach your child to question what they learn when they get home, like basically the opposite of the advice of university. Teach them to keep their heads down, question at home, but then when they get to university, go and be an activist.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah, well, the problem is that before you get to university, you're pretty much beholden to your teachers, right? It's a lot more difficult to be outspoken when you're a 12-year-old. I know from personal experience, but yeah, it
wasn't for me.
Well, I was just weird.
No, that's just me.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Did you want to speak?
Yeah, sorry.
You should apologize.
I don't get
How
the
dare
time.
you speak?
I should just stay in the background.
He said sorry.
No, I didn't say sorry.
No, he said it in incredibly well, actually, no.
Totally didn't
He
say
said
it.
it in a passive-aggressive way. Well, that actually makes you more Canadian.
No, it's rubbing off from these guys. Oh, what I was gonna say is, yeah, it does start really early, like as early as preschool, and that's usually because a lot of single mothers put their kids in preschool because they need to, because there are no fathers around. The fact that you have a father in your life is already giving your kid an enormous heads up, an enormous advantage, okay? And beyond that, I would say it's all about always communicating with your child to the point where what they learn in school is something that they may challenge because they learn something different from you. So they're going to be the ones that are going to be telling the teacher, but I don't know, you know, my parents said that men aren't the devil. And so, you know, like if they're getting it from you as early as possible, you know, you guys have far more power over their attitudes than the school does. And the fact that your father is right there is a testament to that. That's giving you a big bonus.
And be understanding with your kid if they come home with like a 47% in grade 11 social studies because they consistently made their teacher look like a moron in front of the entire class and for no other reason. So.
And yeah, like take off on what Brian said, I would say teach your boy or your girl that other boys and other girls, that morality doesn't have a gender. Boys are not more immoral than girls, even if they're more rambunctious, and girls are not more moral than boys, even though they listen.
Sit still.
They sit still and plot.
They kind of do a lot, yeah.
Okay, next question.
My question is simply, what are your thoughts on the idea that the success of Donald Trump in the United States is somewhat of a backlash from a silent majority?
What shows?
People opposing these feminist and really left-wing ideals.
Do you think he's
Can I answer this as
he's the American.
Resident American?
He's the token American.
He's also he's one of the people Donald Trump hates. Look at him, he's brown. And he tells me he's Puerto Rican, but I'm pretty sure he's Mexican.
I bet I'd rather be that than a taco bowl. Thank you, Hillary. Anyway, so you're asking if this, the backlash from the silent majority, like the growing popularity of Donald Trump, is some kind of response to all the feminist preaching that we're getting on the internet. I think that's a big part of it. I think the fact that feminism is not as popular as people think it is. And in polls, that often feminism shows is unpopular. However, the idea, the dictionary definition of it, just equality of the sexes and women have it worse and all that, that is a commonly held and extremely comfortable belief for most people. The thing is, most people do care about women, and they do believe that they are hard done by in many ways. They just don't like the preaching and the way that feminism communicates those ideas, and when they overreach with the manspreading and the mansplaining and so on, and also when they just use women as some kind of essentially it's like a ball, to like shame men or to praise other women. And I think that, yes, in many ways that is what it is. But I think that ultimately one of the things that Americans do not like in general is being told what to think or how to feel about something without giving them the freedom to decide for themselves. And that is probably what most of the blowback is that you have the media and academics and celebrities, they're fucking assholes, and they're all telling Americans how if they don't believe as they believe, that they are dysfunctional, evil, racist, sexist, homophobic, deplorable, right? And that doesn't work on most Americans because they know they're not bad people, and that makes them more distrustful of all of those, or those groups, those organisms, or whatever.
The people using the tactics and the institutions using the tactics, they're extremely counterproductive. Brexit was largely decided on that basis because once people who were going to vote leave started to be called xenophobic, racist, Islamophobic, blah blah blah, and that seemed to be pretty much the extent of most of the rhetoric coming from the Remain camp. What happened, two things happened, is all of the Leave voters just shut up about it and they didn't participate in any of the polls because they didn't want to be called racist and xenophobic. And then on top of that, the people who were undecided were under the impression that, and they were undecided, so they were actually considering voting Leave, and they're not racist or xenophobic, but that seems to be the only argument the Remain camp was making. So if that's their best argument, and it's not true of me, fuck this, I'm voting Leave, right? So it essentially, that entire type of tactic backfired massively, and especially since people stopped talking, Leave voters stopped talking in the polls. And so everybody thought, all the news organizations thought, that it was a shoo-in for the Remain camp, and it wasn't. Nobody who was going to vote Leave was talking to the pollsters. So
yeah, shame can be really effective. An attack on people's character or like accusations against people's character can be very effective for a while, but there's a breaking point. People don't want to be accused of shit that they're not responsible for. And this is just another overreaching, just like she said with Brexit. Now it's the Yanks' turn. So that's all I got.
When will it be our turn as Canadians?
You guys need patriotism. That's
wait, that's Bill C-16.
Canadians need patriotism. Then you got it.
Yeah.
Where's your eagle? That's
I thought patriotism. We have a beaver.
Oh yeah.
A beaker?
Beaver.
Beaver.
I just have a quick question. One of the things that somebody mentioned earlier was how do you help out? And the way I've done it is with my wallet, basically. You know, I can't always be active. I have a family that I have other things to do, but I do have some money here and there. I mean, I have tons, but I put some towards this film, and then it was a gamble because it could have been a hit piece. A lot of these things end up being hit pieces, so I was very happy it didn't happen today. I'm ecstatic actually, but
Yeah.
how do you guys go about choosing, if you were, you know, me and you had, or anyone in this room and said, I want to fund something like this, how do you go about choosing to make sure these things don't end up in the wrong pockets?
We're a bit biased.
Yeah, we exempt ourselves.
Just all your money
must
give me all your shekels. You know, honestly, like I had the feeling very early on that well, I didn't think it was going to be this good, but I thought it was going to be fair, and but that's just an intuition on my part. Like it wasn't like an actual pragmatic calculation. I don't know. I don't know how you would be able to.
Well, if you're talking about donating,
yeah,
I think there's so many things out there. You gotta.
I would suggest, you know, if you're not sure about organizations, maybe spread your money out. $5 here, $5 there, right? It's every little bit helps, but $5 isn't really gonna, you know, fund.
Or you pick one thing, one issue that you feel strongest about, and just focus on that, because there's a ton. And one of the biggest ones that I think about the most, I think it's probably the most important, is circumcision. It's the easiest. Like, who's going to argue against that? I mean, I know people will, but I'm saying it's the easiest one to make an argument for. After that, fatherlessness. You know, like maybe look at the issues and prioritize them.
Carry on.
Fund what inspires you. I feel if you fund what, even if it doesn't get off the ground, if it inspired you, then you got your money's worth.
Just quickly going to say we don't have much time left. I know there are people with questions.
How many more people with questions?
I have 10 in my head at the moment, so.
Okay.
We can do it 1 minute each.
Okay,
Quick answers.
Quick. Karen.
Given that it's the current year.
Well, that's it. That's the answer.
It's the year that it is.
I have to reflect every now and then whether or not I made the right choice to be an artist. With that said, how do you guys feel about the state of comic books and Marvel Comics in particular?
I got.
Okay, it's just the men now.
I know nothing about this, so.
We'll see if you can do it in a minute, Brian.
It's going to shit. And here's the thing, when it comes to the books. Here's the thing, if you want to make an argument against it, the simplest way to do it is to say, when people are trying to promote all this crap, you tell them, why is it identity politics trumps good writing and good stories? And then just go from that approach. I use what I call I think the best example of how you do it right is Blade. Have you ever seen the movie Blade? Okay?
Quickly.
Character is black. Watch the movie. The fact that he's black never comes up. Never. And it's a good movie that everyone can enjoy. And everything else is of no consequence. And that's how they should write everything. Because the moment you put like women front and center or minorities front and center, and then that becomes like the angle, they ruin it. They ruin it. And that's it.
Spawn was good with that too.
Yeah, Spawn was good for that too.
What are your thoughts about the curation of freedom of speech, controlling of the media, controlling of the information? I learned a lot about the red pill through YouTube, through alternate media sources, and never heard this in the normal media. Or you look at like the newspapers today, like 10 different newspapers, they all show the exact same story, and people are being silenced en masse. Like via Twitter, people think that's the only way of communicating with each other. It's cancer. And people are being shouted down left, right, and center. So what are your thoughts on the
build your own shit?
Yep.
Build a new thing.
Let's go to the next one. Build a new thing.
They're not going to listen to you. They've got this far on the ideology they have, and they're not going to let anyone talk them down from it because their salary depends on it. So yeah, build new things.
Minds.com.
Just go for it. We got to keep her out.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to comment is that looking at this movie, I thought about it again, is that the tactics that we employ are ineffective. They got us where we are, the feminists, although they are a minority and they are disliked by most people, have the power, have the grip on politicians. So what I thought about is maybe making them think that they are trying to advance certain rights for themselves while actually fighting for ours. So let me put an example. In my class, it doesn't matter, I'm a student that sucks, it doesn't matter. But in my class, I'm surrounded by feminists and they are all the time reaching about rape, right? So what I started trying to make them think is, how bad are the rape false accusers, right? But I never named them as rape false accusers, and I didn't even name men. I started a meme within that frame of mind, which is rape trivializers. So they like to use all these fucking memes, so I just put a new feminist meme in there. I just infiltrated the shit out of them, I don't care. And now I've got all these feminists around me saying, rape trivializers this, rape trivializers that. But they're actually fighting for the rights of men without knowing. We gotta play dirty like they play dirty with us. Let's stop being honest with them. Let's just be dirty like that and we get different results.
Excellent trolling. Excellent.
Yes.
I was going to make a theoretical question, but I think that's for you.
Yes, fine. It's
Thank you for the comment.
Okay, quick question for you guys, or maybe not too quick, depending on what you think. So I think when the feminist movement began way back when, it did have some good motives and some good people in the movement, and it probably still does today. I wouldn't know, I haven't found any. But on our side of the men's right movement, as we start to pick up a little bit more steam and getting a little bit more locomotion on our end and becomes more popular into the future, what can we do to avoid pitfalls where people come online that we don't necessarily want in the group or feel like they're not fairly representing our ideals? We want to make sure that we keep real misogynists away from our ideas and what we want to present. Or do you think we're doomed to kind of suffer the same fate where you get people who are just radical on both ends?
Oh, God. I hope not. That's all I can say right now. Oh, no! Well, everybody else had a question?
Okay. You have to look at it this way too, right? Because what is defined as misogyny does not hold a candle to the actual rhetoric that comes out of feminists. That does not get labeled as man-hating. It does not #kill all men, right? M&Ms, here's a bowl of M&Ms, 10% are poisoned, grab a handful. That's how women feel around men, right? Like that, and then you go and you use the same thing, the same analogy in something that they feel sensitive about, and they flip their nut, right? So essentially, I don't think we're ever going to have any kind of level of misogyny in the men's rights movement that can even hold a candle to just your average academic feminist, okay? I just don't. And I'm not even talking about Dworkin and Brownmiller here. I'm talking about, actual women teaching women's studies these days who, are not complete psychopaths.
I think the bigger danger is that we will believe that men's rights activism doesn't apply to certain groups of men.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's the bigger danger. And I will say no more about that.
Next question.
Next.
In a perfect world, Ann Cool's senator gets a bill passed through the legislature and everything, providing transparency to gender studies in Canadian schools. Who would each of you guys like to see in that dream team?
Ann Cools.
And Ann Cools.
Ann Cools. She can just do it. Just she's a tough woman. Just Ann Cools. No, I don't know. I don't know who would be in the dream team. Jordan Peterson.
I don't know names.
She's awful with
Peterson,
them.
Don Dutton, I guess Murray Strauss is gone.
I don't even know who I'm sitting up here with.
Anthony Synod, is it?
What the fuck? How do you remember this shit?
Janice Fianego.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
There are academics out and
Barbara Kay.
Barbara Kay would probably be good too.
Okay, so do we have another question?
Well, it's
I think that was the last one that I remembered.
Oh, there's one.
One more.
How many more minutes do we have?
0.
0?
I'll be quick.
Quick.
So Red Pill was a good primer for people that aren't really deep in the men's movement, since it seems like most people here are. What are kind of your pet issues, like your major issue that you feel you would like to see go into more detail? Maybe just a quick.
Wow.
Evolutionary psychology.
My own pet issue? How men's rights can save the world. Everybody's like,
But identity politics.
And we're done.
oh, we're done.
You look all out of breath now.
Then was a bit.
I'm going
I want to
bed.
eat something.
I'm stuck with this
She's
guy.
weak.
I'm weak.
Yeah, it's too late. But when are you guys going back?
We're going back on Saturday. Me and him are gonna, and my husband are gonna go voyage around. Do you want to meet up for lunch or something?
No, I'll take it tomorrow.